Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to take a look at the U.S. House endorsing protections for adult use marijuana programs. To help us unpack that is Katrina Glogowski, angel investor and attorney. Katrina, thanks for being back on the podcast.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, so this one should be fairly quick as we just kind of highlight some things that are happening or not happening. Basically looking at protections in annual spending bills as temporary. So cannabis businesses want to see permanent reform at the federal level. Last fall, we saw a historic vote in the U.S. House Judiciary Committee pass a sweeping federal marijuana legalization bill called the MORE Act, which would remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act. And legalization advocates hope that the MORE Act will be considered by the full House later this year. So for it to move from the House to the Senate, I guess that's the next big thing. I think Senator Crapo of Idaho is a big proponent, won't even allow it to be heard. And so between these two bills, something should move forward, don't you think?
Well, Josh, let's take a moment and clarify what it is that's actually happening here. For many, many years now, the United States Congress has attached a rider to the federal funding bill. This is not independent legislation. This is just a little one-liner in the funding aspect of the federal government. And what just passed the House was a little rider saying you cannot use that the Department of Justice cannot use federal money to go after states that have legalized marijuana. So what does that mean in practicality? That means if you are growing cannabis legally in the state of Washington, pursuant to Washington state law, the federal government will not come in and bother you. So we've had this legislation before. This is not new. And they have just voted to extend that protection and prohibit spending federal money to go after legal cannabis companies where states have legalized cannabis. Now that's very different from the MORE Act and the SAFE Act, which we've discussed before, but this is just a Band-Aid. Just like the FDA has put a Band-Aid on the CBD, this is the federal government putting a Band-Aid on state cannabis legalization, Josh. And they need to do more. The article is correct. This little temporary Band-Aid doesn't help anybody. We need solid banking reform, and we need solid federal guidance on cannabis legalization, Josh.
It's a little regressive, but it is kind of moving forward. It kind of feels like, two steps back and one step forward, re-implementing what seems to be like the Cole memo to say, okay, we're going to just not do anything about this and not utilize taxpayer money to stop it, which was essentially what the Cole memo was all about during the Obama administration, and then pulled back, and then now we've got something else. But at least with these different acts, the SAFE Act and the MORE Act, some of that verbiage is being pulled out and being used right now for essential businesses, and hopefully moving forward with federal legalization, or at least banking, one step at a time. Hopefully they're going to be using some of this verbiage to implement some rules down the road shortly.
Agreed entirely, Josh.
You just got to come back to the Talking Hedge and find out. I want to thank my guest, Katrina Glogowski, angel investor and attorney. Thanks for being back on the podcast.
Thanks, Josh.
With that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.